Hi guys, what's up? In this video I want to cover a pretty controversial verse that some people like to look at. The verse is Matthew 7:1, and it says this: "Judge not that you be not judged." That's something Jesus said. A lot of people like to use this verse to point out the hypocrisy of Christians judging other people, and you see this also in progressive Christianity as well. But what does Jesus actually mean by this? Didn't Jesus judge the Pharisees? It says pretty clearly in Matthew 23:13 through 15, which is one example where he says, "But woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you neither enter yourselves nor allow those who would enter to go in. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you devour widows' houses, and for a pretense you make long prayers. Therefore you will receive the greater condemnation. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you travel across the sea and land to make a single proselyte, and when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much of a child of hell as yourselves." And I know some of you might be thinking, hell isn't really what Jesus was talking about. But Jesus calls them children of hell. The word for hell here means Gehenna. One interpretation is that it means something like sons of lamentation, or another meaning would be worthy of punishment in Gehenna. So clearly Jesus had a very strong rebuke for the Pharisees, regardless of how you interpret that word hell. So does this really mean that we can never judge anyone? The word judge here really means something like condemning. The question of condemning to what? That's the question. I'll let you think about that yourselves. I think the problem some people make with reading Matthew 7:1 is that they stop cold at Matthew 7:1 and they don't read the larger context of the verse. So in Matthew 7:2 it states, "For with the judgment you pronounce you will be judged, and with the measure you use it will be measured to you." And we can see from context that Jesus also says, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will be able to see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye, in verse 5. So clearly there is a time for judging according to Jesus. But Jesus is basically saying, to the degree to which you judge others falsely, you will be judged by the same severity. And another person might say, Jesus is contradicting himself by judging others. But here's a morality ethic that Jesus gives us, and you can tell me if you think it's untrue or not. It says in Matthew 5:38 to 42, it says, "You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him also the other. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to anyone who begs of you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you." So you could really only level a complaint against Jesus if you thought he was contradicting his words in Matthew 5:38 to 42. And there's plenty of passages where Jesus shows great compassion towards people in healing them of their maladies. But Jesus is also not saying to be a doormat and let people walk all over you. Jesus' whole point here is to exercise caution when dealing with other people. His message was to err on the side of love and compassion rather than indignation and condemning. I just had a Bible study last night with my brother and a mutual friend. The friend was in charge of leading the Bible study. He decided to do the Bible study on wisdom. I can't help but seeing the association here between the wisdom of Christ's ethic and being cautious with how you treat other people, and the lesson that was taken in part from Proverbs 8:22 to 31, which you can read on your own time if you want. Jesus ties this whole principle together later in Matthew. It was not until much later that Jesus gives his final condemnation of the Pharisees in chapter 23. But here in Matthew 9:10 through 13 we read, "And Jesus reclined at the table in the house. Behold, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, 'Why does he eat with these tax collectors and sinners?' But Jesus heard it, and he said, 'Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick.'" And this is the key thing right here. It says, "Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners." In conclusion, if you feel you have a right to pronounce judgment upon a person, make sure you're not making the same sort of error as that other person. If you have a condemning word for someone, do not take lightly your own sin. Do not be so indignant as to ignore your own failings as a sinner before you condemn someone else, but instead lead with love. If you have the mindset to be slow to condemn others and to err on the side of caution rather than criticism, you'll be a wise person. Never forget that Christ died for us while we were still sinning against him. For it is by mercy that we are saved, and not through condemnation that we pronounce on others that we are righteous. So those are my thoughts on Matthew 7:1. Thanks for watching. I tried to stick entirely to Matthew in this teaching. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.